Hello and welcome to the last of SWWC's AI-powered content upgrade webinars presented by SWWC's AID team. I am Kyle Krenz, a technology integrationist with SWWC. In today's webinar, we will look at how educators in a social studies classroom can redefine how they and their students use and interact with primary and secondary sources with the help of AI. After today, I hope you can walk away with a few different ways you can take the primary and secondary sources you already use in your courses and apply them in new and different ways. As a quick reminder, before you or your students interact with any AI platforms, that you do not share any personally identifiable information. And be aware that the information and outputs that AI produces can include inaccurate information, including hallucinations where the AI platforms make up completely new and false information. For today's webinar, I will only be using one AI platform, that being Google Gemini. Feel free to follow along within your own Google Gemini account. Additionally, you can use many other AI platforms in the same way I will be using Gemini in today's examples. The QR code you see on the screen will lead you to access of Google Gemini. Throughout today's examples, I will be using prompts and instructions to inform Gemini's chatbot and my created gems on what I am needing from it in terms of generated outputs. Via the QR code on the screen, you can gain access to the prompts that were used. Feel free to take them and make the changes and additions that you feel are needed to make them fit your needs. Alright, so for our first example of the day of how we can use primary and secondary sources in new and different ways with AI, is we are going to basically try to pretend that we are in a history classroom and that we are getting to the point in the year where we're covering the War of Independence and the Declaration of Independence as that primary source document. Inside of Gemini, I'm actually going to create what's called a gem for this first activity. And what a gem is basically a chatbot that has a very specific expectation or task that it is going to perform for us in terms of what it's going to give us as an output. If you've never created gems before, it's relatively easy. David did a great job in the last webinar series of going through that process. I'm going to go through very quickly how to set it up. It's actually pretty easy. So first thing is simply access Gemini. On your left hand side, you should have this area where it says gems, and then first part of this is just simply click the blue button that says New Gem. Now once you have clicked that blue New Gem button, you're going to get to a screen that looks similar to this. In this case, I've already set up the gem for this activity, but I'm going to walk you through how you would do this if you were doing this for the first time from scratch. So first of all, you just need a name of the gem. In this case, I titled ours 1776 Loyalist. I will explain why we labeled that here in a second. The next is simply that you're going to give the gem a description. In our case, back on the page where I have the prompts and descriptions, I've taken this first part here and simply copied and pasted it in to where it says description. In this case, our 1776 Loyalist, the gem, the chatbot, is taking on the role of a loyalist to the British Crown. The Declaration of Independence has just been released, and now that we are going to set up basically a debate between ourselves as a colonist for independence versus a loyalist, who in this case is the chatbot, taking on the loyalist role for the crown. So we need that description, and then we need instructions on what we want that gem to do. That goes down in this box. So we're going to take this next part, which is the prompt here, telling it what year it is and where they're living and the background of it, so that it generates proper output for us. Then finally, and probably the most important part, is or under this knowledge part, so any extra PDFs or documents or sources you want it to run from or take information from, you need to upload. So in this case, I uploaded a PDF text of the Declaration of Independence because we're actually going to be using the grievances listed in the Declaration as our debate back and forth between the Loyalist chatbot and ourselves as the user, or our students as the user of the chatbot. So basically we want to debate what's in the Declaration as grievances between ourselves and somebody from the opposite perspective. Once you have your gem created with the description and the title and its base knowledge of where it's pulling information from, you are now able to basically communicate with it like it's a chatbot. Now, in this case, the gem has a very particular role. So over on the left-hand side, we see our gems. You see the one that you just created. And now you can conversate with it for what you want its actual purpose to be. So in our case, we want to pull an actual grievance from the Declaration of Independence, which I've done there from that page. And really, if this is your student or yourself, you can actually just copy and paste that grievances from the text. So I pulled a couple grievances, and what's going to be great now, if I hit enter, you're going to get to see the response from the chatbot. And what's great is if you look at what it comes up with, it actually pretty much speaks in a way where it's defending the crown, and it speaks in a little bit of that old English, 1776 English. And it's going to address our specific grievances from that from the Declaration, and it's going to try to defend itself with examples from history and why it's important to continue to do the things that the Crown and the King of England is doing at that time period. And it's going to reference the grievances that we put in. Now, I, as the person going back and forth, based upon the instruction I gave this particular gem, is I can input up to 3 grievances and debate those 3 particular grievances. And so I can continue to go back and forth. I can pull more facts and stats from myself, from my point of view, and input that in and have a conversation back and forth. But it's really cool because it's basically showing you what a person from that time period, from the other perspective, from the Crown's perspective, a loyalist, would say. Gives the kids a completely different perspective on the Declaration of Independence. So this is really a great way for your students to learn about the particular grievances that are in the Declaration of Independence. It also gives them that other perspective from the Loyalists in the colonies. One of the great ways also is that instead of them just reading what's off the screen, if they hit these 3 dots, they can actually listen to the output provided to them from the gem. Once this gem is created, if they go over here to the left-hand side, you can click the 3 dots and you can share this. So instead of the students creating the gem, you can create the gem and then share that gem to them, as long as they, of course, have access to Google Gemini as a AI platform. Now, you might be saying to yourself, hey, that seems really sophisticated. Maybe that's a little bit over my head in terms of now I'm creating a gem, a particular chatbot to do a particular task. That's a little bit over my head. Well, if you just wanted to take that same primary source document that is the Declaration of Independence, that text, right, and you just wanted to do something maybe a little bit more basic and ground level with that source. Something that all chatbots really have the ability to do now is if I hit just new chat up in Gemini, I can just prompt it to change the text to a level or to a different format that maybe makes it easier for my students to understand. So in my case, maybe it's just that, hey, my kids are really struggling with the old English of 1776 that Thomas Jefferson was writing in, right? So we can prompt the chatbot to simply change the version of the text that I'm going to upload. So I still need to give it that PDF document of the Declaration. I just uploaded that PDF, and in my prompt I said, take this text of the Declaration and redraft it into a more modern version with current day wording and vocabulary, as this will be used with high school students. Send that in. And as it works on that, you're going to see that it's going over the PDF. And as it thinks, the goal of this is to now take that old English version of text and generate it into something that it is more widely understood by our students, right? So it says this is a modern language redraft of the Declaration. Based on provided text, it is designed and accessible for high school students while maintaining the structure of the 1776 Declaration. So you can see that it lays out the preamble, the core principles, the problems or grievances with the kings. It lays them out in a more transparent way for our students. And it lays out what we have tried to do in the past. And so it breaks down all the sections of the declaration, even has the portions where they signed it at the bottom, and has shortened it into a version and into modern English where our students would maybe have a little bit better understanding of what's actually in the document. You can, of course, take this and copy and paste it into a Word doc and then print it or share it to your students. Now, in this example, we just simply got it to be in a more modern day English version. But let's just say we wanted that document, and even once we got it to a more modern day version of it, it was still maybe the reading level was too high. What we can actually do is also just prompt it to change the reading level. So we can go to New Chat and we can prompt it to do that. So we can ask it, hey, I have attached the PDF of the Declaration of Independence. Here I go. I'm going to upload it again. And it says, attached is a PDF text of the Declaration of Independence. Can you please redraft this into a more modern version with current day wording and vocabulary? Additionally, as you redraft, please lower the reading level to that of a 7th grade student. So not only is it going to put it into a more modern day language, it also is going to reduce that reading level down to like a 7th grade level for a student that maybe needs that extra assistance in terms of being able to read. As it does that, it's going to start putting that out. And notice it follows that same layout that we had previously, but you can definitely tell by me just scrolling over this right now, I can see that the vocabulary level has dropped some, and the explanations of it are not using as high a vocabulary as it did that first time when it redrafted it. So not only did we put it in more modern day language, we also got that got the written text to be in a lower reading level that might assist many of our students that maybe need that extra support. Another quick thing you can do with this translated, redrafted version is you can have the AI chatbot redrafted into more modern language, but then also have your students themselves rewrite the declaration for modern day 2026. And then what you can do is have your students compare what they created to what the AI chatbot created. And maybe then you actually have a vote. Did one of their classmates do actually a better job than the AI chatbot? Or did the AI chatbot actually do a better job at putting that into more modern day language? It would get them to dive into what the declaration means and put it into more modern day verbiage. And then they get the fun part of actually comparing it to another source, another output that is not like their own. So just a quick, easy idea. You can do this to really any document. If you need it changed in reading level, or you need it to be put in more modern language, it can easily do that. It makes it really easy way to get sources and get information into reading levels and a way for your students to be able to understand it as they read text. All right, for our next source activity, we are actually going to transition to where you could possibly maybe use a secondary source as your source of reference with the addition of AI tools. So in our case, we're going to have to set up a gem for this activity. So once again, in Google, go to your gem space, click the new gem blue button, which is right there. You'll need to title whatever your gem is. In this case, ours is going to be D-Day Story Generator. We need a description, which is going to be create a creative story around the events of D-Day in World War II. Once again, you're going to want to give it further instructions and details back in the prompt page. I have that ready to go, so you can copy and paste that in if need be. I also want to attach in a reference to a source. So I have as our secondary source, I have an Encyclopedia Britannica source, which is right here, that gives facts and stats about the Normandy invasion of D-Day. I wanted to use that in helping it craft a story. It's going to craft a fictional story using fictional characters, but it's going to place those fictional characters in the events of D-Day. So once I have this all set up, I'm going to hit save so that the gem saves. And then I'm going to hit start chat, like I'm going to interact with it. And I'm going to prompt it. Create a creative story within the events World War II. Your main character will be named Robert. It can be as simple a prompt as that. Your students might give it more input in terms of who the characters are going to be and their age and all that, their rank, all of that. But I just use that as my example. And it's going to sit there and analyze what it wants to do. And then there's my story. So if you see, it's in paragraph form. And it says, I'm just going to read the first paragraph for you. It says, the salt spray stung Robert's eyes as the Higgins boat bobbed violently in the choppy waters of the English Channel. It was just after dawn on June 6, 1944, D-Day. Robert, a young private in the U.S. First Army under Major General Omar Bradley, gripped his rifle so hard his knuckles turned white. Around him, the air hummed with the roar of 13,000 Allied aircrafts, a massive force that the German Luftwaffe simply couldn't match. Now you have its generated story. What you can do from here is simply prompt it again to make any changes that you want. Maybe you want in the name of your character the change. Maybe you want the story to be longer. Maybe you want it to be shorter. You can prompt it to make those changes. But what's nice is I, as the user of this bot, can simply take the story and I can take it and I can go open a Google Doc and now I can put my story into that Google Doc. And now you might be saying, well, great, we have this story that got generated. It's a fictional story about of D-Day. What can we do now with it? Well, a great teaching moment here for your students might be you have this AI generated fictional story, but it's supposed to be using facts and stats and information from the actual event of D-Day. What you could have your students now do is go and read this story and highlight in the text or in the story any inaccuracies that they come across. Maybe you do this after you have taught them about the D-Day invasion. Or maybe you give them a couple different sources, like for instance the encyclopedia entry, and you give them those sources and they go through here and look for any inaccuracies and they highlight anything that may be wrong, and then they can make comments in the margins about what's wrong with it and then correct it. And then maybe they give you the source that they used to correct it. It's a great way for them to A, learn about the event, but B, use it as a teachable moment to show them that, hey, maybe AI, as great as it is, it might still make some mistakes, and that it might make up some information to please you, or it might simply get stuff wrong. And it's a teachable moment in which you can show them that A, yes, you're going to learn about the event, but also prove to them that maybe along the way the AI resource might actually make a few mistakes here and there. This now leads us to our last activity or example of the day. You may be familiar with the game 20 Questions. This is going to be a spin-off of that, but using AI as the way to play that old school game. So in this case, I'm going to be in Gemini. I'm going to go to, once again, my gem space. So I'm going to click New Gem. I'm going to label it 20 Questions Historical Chatbot. And if you want to get specific, in this case, I'm going to label it Battle of the Bulge. Okay. Then it needs a description. I'm just going to say we're setting up a game of 20 questions. You will be prompted with questions trying to figure out which historical event you are telling us about. I'm going to give it further instructions down below. So I have that prompt ready to go on the prompt page, in that it says, via the link you will find an encyclopedia entry for the historical event of the Battle of the Bulge. Use the information provided in the entry to answer questions when prompted. Users of this gem will be asking you up to 20 questions about this event. Do not tell them the name in any of your responses, only descriptive answers. Eventually users will make a guess about what event you are describing. Let them know when they are correct or incorrect. So I'm just going to take that instructions, plop it in there. And then finally, I would once again put in my reference source, which would be that PDF of that encyclopedia entry. So once you have that PDF or that link uploaded of whatever source you want it to work with, it could be primary or secondary, simply hit the save button over on the right hand side. Now with our gem created, our 20 question historical chatbot, we can start interacting with it. One thing I did want to mention is before, when we put the title in, I put in the title Battle of the Bulge. That's actually not a great way of doing it. I would suggest obviously not putting the name of the historical event that you're trying to have your students guess in the title, because once they get to this screen where they can actually prompt it with questions about the event, if you put the name of the event in the title, that's going to show up on the screen and obviously give away the event. So just make sure that you don't put that in there. I went back and corrected that for our purposes. But once we got the gem set up, we can now ask it questions. In what year did this event take place? And it's going to tell me when the event took place. So it says 1944, 1945. Hopefully your students would connect the dots and say, hey, that sounds like World War II-ish time period, in which they can ask, was this a battle in World War II? It's going to say, yes, it was a major conflict in World War II. And it says that it was on the Western Front. So at least your students can hopefully put that together. And it gave me that it was referred to as the Battle of the Ardennes. So hopefully they can kind of maybe connect the dots for what that is. Who won? So as you can see, I can continue to ask it questions to try to get more information about the event. And when I think I know it, I, as the prompter here, can take a guess. Is this event the Battle of the Bulge? And it's going to tell me, yes, this is correct. You have identified the event. Okay? So this is a great way for your students to learn historical events, to review historical events. How I see basically the two ways of where you could use this gem or this learning activity is really in two ways. Number one, if you are teaching a certain time period of events, this would be a great way for kids to take notes or to learn it for the first time, in which they're inputting questions and it's giving them information back, and your kids have to take notes, right? Once they get the notes, eventually they're going to get to the finish line of hopefully they're going to be able to guess the right answer, or it's just going to tell them the right answer if they say, hey, I don't know, I've reached the end of my 20 questions. What is the event? But it's a way for them in a new and different way to maybe take some notes on these historical events that you're trying to teach them from a certain time period. The other way I see this activity working in, say, like a history classroom, is that you've reached a end of a unit or a midterm or final exam where you just have a lot of different events from a certain time period together, or maybe in a world history class as well, where you have all these events and time periods put together in like a final exam. You could put these chatbots together with major events, and it'd be a great way for your kids to review all of those historical events that maybe they've learned over the course of the semester or over the course of the school year, so that prepares them for that midterm and final exam. Now, in this example, I used the Battle of the Bulge as the historical event, and the prompt was written in that way, right? Now, if you notice this part where I underlined it, that's where I put the title of the event in. You could take that prompt and simply, in the instructions when you're setting up the gem, just take this part, copy and paste, and then change, obviously, the title of the event in there, and then obviously use a different source that would go along with whatever historical event that you're covering, right? So in this case, if I did the Battle of the Bulge and the next historic event, because we're in World War II, maybe it's D-Day, right? I would upload that D-Day source for the gem to work from. So changing the prompt title, the title of the event in the prompt when creating a secondary gem or another gem for this activity, I would have to do, and then also upload that different source for it to pull its resources or information from. But you can do this for all types of events. You can also do this for historical people, right? So if you have a certain time period with lots of people that you want your students to remember and be able to know what their important legacy of those people are, you can set this up in much the same way, but do it with obviously bibliography sources. As a review today, as you've created these gems, maybe as you follow along, or you're going to create your gems later, and you want to actually then share that with your students, just a quick review. Once again, go to your gems section of your menu in Gemini, click the three dots, click the share button, and what you're going to be able to do is you're going to get the share box just like you would pull up on a Google Doc or Google Slides that you're trying to share with your students. Same thing, change the share settings, right? And now you can copy that link and paste it into, say, Google Classroom or Schoology, however your LMS for your students to quickly get information or assignments, and share this gem with them. Once they have the gem, as long as they have access to Gemini itself, they're going to be able to interact with whatever gem you have created for them to work with. So that's just a quick review once again of how to share out your created gem if you're not having your students create these from scratch themselves. I hope you have enjoyed today's webinar on transforming primary and secondary sources. Hopefully you can take one or more of the activities or ideas and implement in your own classroom with your students. In just a few short weeks, SWWC's AID team will be presenting its annual AI Symposium on May 1st. This virtual event is a great learning opportunity on numerous topics surrounding artificial intelligence. Stay the whole day in sessions or come and go when you can. It is completely your choice. If you are unable to make the virtual event that day, don't worry, an on-demand viewing option will be available after the event takes place for you to access. Simply scan the QR code on the screen or visit the site URL listed on the screen for more information and to register for the event. We are looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you for your time and attention throughout today's webinar.